All right, so let's jump in. Today we're going to be talking about the value of an advisor. However, it's a three-part series. Today we're going to be really focusing on income planning because I believe there are three pillars that every advisor has to have in order to have an ultimate value proposition practice. So the first pillar that we're going to be talking about is today's income planning. All right, there's going to have a lot of fun. I don't want to dive into it just yet. Let's talk about the other two pillars. The second one is investment strategy. So you have to have a great plan, which we're going to talk about. Then if you can't back up that plan with a good investment strategy, you're kind of dead in the water. And then the last one is client experience or customer experience. In the olden days, it used to be customer service. In today's environment, it's customer experience, which I can't wait to jump into that because that's a really, really fun one. These are the three pillars. It's like a stool with three legs on it. If one goes off, if you're not really good at one, the stool falls over. The reality is you can't be good at any one of these three. You have to be great at all three. When you become really proficient and efficient at all three of these, your practice really takes off. So this is a really important series that we're going to be going through because when you can efficiently and to be honest with you, when you're really great at all three of these things, your practice is ultimately going to grow without a whole lot of effort from you. So let's talk about investment planning or income planning. All right. So before we dive into the techniques of how I think you should do it and how we do it, I want to talk about how most people do it, how most financial advisors. And to be honest with you, this was me a long, long time ago. I haven't done this in about a decade, but this is very, very typical. This is what most advisors do. They have a series of meetings, and in the first meeting, they're going to build rapport, and really ultimately, it's a trust proposition. You're trying to help your client say, hey, this is a good guy. I feel good about this girl, this advisor. I can trust them. I'm building rapport. I feel good. You as the advisor, you want to gather as much information as possible. So this first meeting is just to kind of set the tone, getting a good feeling across the table so there's some form of trust. Second meeting, you kind of present the plan. This is your findings. You know, a lot happens in this meeting because that you validate what happened in the first meeting. So this one, you're presenting your findings, you're having a good time, you're continuing to build that rapport. But this is where, I used to believe the magic happened. And then we'll answer some questions, but the reality is the next meeting is really objections, questions. Here we're going to get into, why you would or wouldn't want to do any aspects, what issues you're going to have, with any part of the plan. Do we need to make any adjustments? How do you feel? And this is where we begin. I mean, we're trying to close here, but at the end of the day, we're really trying to close the business here. And if we have to go to a fourth, we can do that. Some advisors might be able to close in the second, but depending on your skill level and how you handle this, it might be 2 meetings, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 meetings, and you're continually chipping away until ultimately you have this amazing relationship and they're like, hey, let's do it. I think this is old school. I'm not a big fan of this. However, I did it for the lion's share of my career still, although I haven't done it in about a decade. How I really work now is I understood something that took place, and the real value of what you do and the real value of what I do happens in between meetings. It's really between the first meeting and the second meeting. So if we come back here, what happens is we gather as much information as we can in our first meeting, and then we take all this info and we build our plan. And what happens? Like, we have such a good idea of, okay, we have all this information. Here's our strategy. We call people depending on the size of the case. And we're like, hey, I got this new client, this prospect. They've got all these millions of dollars, or they have this thing or this business or whatever. I was thinking about doing this. What products do you have? However you decide, what's happening right here is really where you're getting convinced of the plan you're about to present here. And yet, we're leaving that. This magic that's happening right here, the client doesn't get to experience. So what's convincing you as the advisor is not convincing the client or the prospect, because they don't get to experience any of that. And it's where the magic happens. It's where you're like, this is it. And those aha moments that you're having, we're not allowing the client to experience. So I came to this conclusion a long time ago, and it took a very bold step for me and as an advisor to get over the point where I'm like, hey, is it possible for me to allow a client, a prospect, to go through the same experience that I have as the advisor? Because how we get convinced should be the exact same way that they get convinced. All right. So we started doing something that we call co-planning, something we talk about all the time. This is a very big part of our process in the income planning. So it's not that you're just a rock star and come up with the greatest income plannings, whether you sell annuities or your strategy on investment for the stock market or whatever you do, life insurance. The strategy itself, whatever. I mean, there's no uniqueness. I mean, every advisor is like, oh, I'm so different, but the guy next to you does the exact same thing, maybe a little bit different, but it's pretty much the same thing. There's nothing that I do that any other advisor can't do. Yet why is my success better? Or why are there other advisors that do the same thing I do that are having even more success than me? There's something they're doing that's a little bit different. For us, we do this thing called co-planning. And co-planning is where we're sitting shoulder to shoulder with our clients, which I'll explain to you. We use a system called Simplicitree. It's something that we're very passionate about. It's our own planning system that we use. And when we go through a plan, this is all filled out where you see numbers in it. But when we're building a plan together, I've got a wireless keyboard right here. And if I'm in person with them, I literally hand the keyboard over to the client. And I'm like, hey, I have these screens all over our office. And what I'll do is I'll say, hey, let me operate the screen. You operate the keyboard. And when we go to a box that's completely blank, we'll discuss it and you answer it. Okay, you just type in the information. And what happens as we do that is there's this ownership that's being taken place where the client's like, this is my plan. Like, I'm actually typing, I'm putting this information as we go through and we go to investments. They're putting in, like, I have a Fidelity 401k and I've got this much money in it. I've got this savings account. And what used to happen before, where I was like pulling teeth to get information, once I gave them the keyboard, now they're like, oh, wait, I have this account. Let me see if I can go find it online. They get on their phone, like, oh, yeah, there's this much money in it. My wife has this other savings. Because it's their plan. They have the key. They have control. And when they have control, they're like, I want this to be accurate. And they start giving you to the penny of everything they have. And what's taking place is they're like almost leading the charge of putting their plan together. And as we go through it, and I'm not going to get into this today, we get onto their base plan. We educate on what we believe is super important, which is their shortfall. This is their problem. It's the gap between where they are and where they want to be. And then we get into investment planning. And when we get into investment planning, this is where that aha moment happens, where you as the advisor, you start using strategies when you're going into your plan. And you're like, do I want to put life insurance, mutual funds, CDs, bonds, however your strategy is, you start tinkering with what could work and what doesn't work. And you're doing this live. I'm doing this live right in front of a client. And I'm showing them we've gamified a plan where we have a shortfall and we're trying to solve it. And as we start putting in investment recommendations, it's adjusting the plan literally right in front of them. And they're going, that doesn't work. That works. That doesn't work. That works. And they're getting the same experience that you and I get. And they're like getting sold. And I'm not even trying to sell them. I'm just trying to solve it. I'm literally like going through the paces of what we do on our own. I'm just doing it right in front of a client. And they're like, what just happened there? That did something pretty special. What happens? And then we're explaining what we did. We're explaining what that is. And they're just like, wow, that really made a big difference. I want to they're making mental notes. I want that. I want that. I want that. And it's the same thing we do as advisors. We're like, oh, that really made sense. That made sense. We should do that. So when we're going through this co-planning, what's happening is, well, we use, our software is called Simplicitree. Whatever system that you use, biasly speaking, you're not going to get that same experience with any other software than Simplicitree. However, you might be able to cherry rig your system where you can do something very similar. I would highly recommend going shoulder to shoulder with your prospects, doing the same exact thing. We use a tool called Simplicitree, and co-planning has changed everything for us because now we're not having to sell anything. All we're doing is education. We're literally walking a prospect through the same paces that we go ourselves. And we're just like, how can I make this work? Now, I will say it can be a little challenging, when you're going to be going through this, which I'll get into in a second. First, I already kind of let the cat out of the bag and some of the benefits. The first thing that we're going to talk about is enhanced client engagement. It's the first thing I actually mentioned. Where the client's taking ownership and they're like, hey, I want to put in this information, for my plan. I don't want to leave anything out. So they're just like, this is mine, and I want it to be complete and robust in our system. We actually grant them online access where they can, if they were just alone in the office and their spouse was at home, they can log in at home and walk. Some of our clients get super animated, about this and excited because it's for the first time in their investing careers. They're like, I get it. I understand it. I built it. Even though you were a big part of that, they're like, this is mine. I did this. And I'm like, yes, you did. So their excitement and their engagement is at an all-time level. I've got clients now when they come in for reviews, they're like, they want the keyboard, they want the pen, they want to sit in front of the screen, and they move it. They get out of their seat and they're like, this is my show. And I'm like sitting back, I'm like, this is so great. You can see the excitement on my face. But the reality is, it is a fun thing to watch when a client literally takes charge of their situations. I mean, how many times that happened in your case, the way you plan? I don't know if it has. It never happened when I did the old process, where it's like meeting. I was the presenter. I was the sales guy, and I was hoping to get them to sign. Now it's like I just want to get them involved, and the more involved and engaged they are, the less I have to do. All I'm doing, I'm the coach, I'm the Yoda, they're the Luke Skywalker. And I'm just trying to get them to the point where they have the courage to make the decision to do what, to beat the Death Star, to have that confidence because they have a shortfall. They're trying to plan for something, and I'm just getting them to a point where they have the courage to act. I don't have to sell anymore. And it's made a huge difference for me. I am now just an educator. I'm a teacher. And I bring them into this experience called co-planning with Simplicitree. And again, it's been huge impact. Ultimately, because I want them to have the same aha moment, or like, wow, I want that. And by the way, when they take ownership, when a prospect or client takes ownership of their situation, their plan, when bad things happen, because it happens all the time, the market goes down, things don't work out, the strategy struggles, whatever, they're like, no, I know this is going to work. This is our plan. Can we get back to Simplicitree? And to see how things are? Is there anything that we need to tweak? I want to get back into there. How many times have clients of yours been like, hey, can we build that plan again? Can we make sure that things are good? Most of the time it's like, how are we doing? Are we okay? And they're looking for you for confidence. With our clients, a lot of times they're like, hey, I want to go back to Simplicitree and just make sure that we're okay. Can I get in front of the board? Can I grab the keyboard? I mean, they're not saying, can I grab the keyboard? But what they are saying is, I want to get more involved and I want to make sure I have that full understanding and ownership of the plan because it's fully transparent. With our system, with this system that we're using, I'm trying to teach you, the reality is we're not hiding behind anything. I'm not some wizard behind the curtain moving levers. We're doing it together. And I'm not hiding anything. And our clients the trust is at literally a 10 out of 10 because there's like, I know everything that you're doing. So there's not, it's for the first time, they feel like they understand. But also for the first time, there's like, I'm doing everything the advisor's doing. It's almost like the CPA that's filling in the boxes, that they're doing it right in front of the client. There's like, here's the result. That's what we're doing. We're like, here's the strategy in your plan. Here's the result. I'm seeing it for the first time. You are. There's full transparency. All right. Next thing that we want to talk about is if you, and I got ahead of myself before, when you try to implement this, whether we with Simplicitree or on your own, there are definitely going to be some hurdles that you're going to have to deal with. The first is this transition challenge. This is pretty tough because when you first get indoctrinated and start using a new system like Simplicitree, you're just like, well, I'm just going to build the plan first, because I don't want to look like an idiot when I'm in front of somebody and not know where to click or whatever, and that's fine. You need to do that, but then erase it all and do it from scratch when you're in front of the client. Get confident, practice. We've got plenty of coaches that you can do that with if you're with Simplicitree, or if you're on your own. Get in front of existing clients and be like, hey, I got a new system. Build it in front of them, saying, I'm not really familiar with this. Can you come in? Can I use you as a guinea pig? And I actually want to use your plan, but I'm not that familiar. I'm trying to learn more. They're going to be like, yes. Don't be afraid. A lot of clients are like, I don't want them to know, I have to learn this or do that. Why? They get endeared to you. They'll actually send you more referrals because, like, this guy's actually, he wants my help to get better at his business and get better at what he does. It's crazy. Sounds nuts, but it works really well. So there will be transition challenges. Next thing is the resistance to change. The hardest part is doing it live. I have so many clients that use this system and they still struggle to do it live. And it takes a little bit of time through this transition. Don't be resistant to change. You want the benefits of these aha moments, this ownership transition, where it goes from you owning the recommendations and the plan to the client owning that. And the last thing is best practices. I already told you some of that. Practice on clients. Practice on other advisors. Practice. It's the best way you get better is doing it over and over. I don't want to harp on that long, but it is going to be very important that you, because of this, and it's live, you can screw up. You can look like you don't know what you're doing. So it is important that you're gonna practice. All right. So there are 3 pillars that we're talking about. We just went over the first one, which is income planning. If you have a great plan, which a lot of advisors, I've met very few advisors that are like, I have an okay plan. Most advisors are like, no, I've got the best system. I've got the best investment recommendations. I love it, until they learn something else. I get it. I'm the same way. But if you don't have an investment strategy to back that plan up, you're dead in the water. And if you don't have great service or experience to back up your plan and your strategy, you're still dead in the water, because somebody's going to come along that does something better than you. So you have to have this full circle approach that has all 3 of these pillars, because they work very, very good together. Now, last thing I'm going to tell you is, if you want more information, there is definitely these 3 pillars. I have 3 videos that are going on, all 3 that I'm teaching, but we also have a guide that goes along with it. It's 100% free. It's actually called The Ultimate Guide to Elevating Your Practice, which goes into deep detail on all 3 of these pillars. It's fully free. You can just reach out to us, say, hey, I'd love that guide. We'll send it to you. It's real simple. It's pretty long. The book's it's got about 60 pages in it, that goes into a whole lot of detail about income planning, investment strategy, and client experience. All right. So hope you learned a ton. Go check out the next video, which is investment strategy. Until then, we'll talk to you later.